Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's great to be here. Yoetzin and I are pleased to discuss what Komatsu is doing with Smart Construction Dashboard. You previously got some insight from Dave on how Cesium is developing the platform behind Smart Construction Dashboard. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk a little bit today about how some of the construction industry is implementing a tool like this. So first of all, I guess I should probably introduce myself. And I'll let Yoetzin introduce herself here in a minute. Is that so? I've been in the construction industry for a better part of over 25 years. I started out in land surveying, civil engineering. I have my license in the state of Illinois in the U.S. For both land surveying and civil engineering, and I did that for a number of years until I moved on into the positioning business, where is heavily involved in survey instrumentation, helping the survey industry, the civil engineering industry in with their technology needs, as well as in the construction industry with their machine control industry business. And about 9 years ago, I came on board with Komatsu to work with the intelligent machine control. So over the years, I've spent a lot of time working on job sites with contractors, not only doing the actual physical surveying on a job, but the civil engineering design, the machine control readiness, and just basically understanding a good part of their business so that they could integrate a lot of the technology in their business. I don't want to go on too long. I'll let Yoetzin introduce herself here.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, everyone. I'm Yoetzin Diaz, Construction Solutions Manager at Komatsu. I've been in the construction industry for about 6 years now. I worked for a general contractor previous to Komatsu, just helping manage projects from start to end. Now at Komatsu, I've been 2 years, and I've been helping test a lot of the solution applications, which you're going to learn about. Two of them here today are Smart Construction Drone and our Smart Construction Dashboard, and how those two integrate together.
All right, great. Thanks, Yoetzin. So one thing that I wanted to start off with before we transition to Yoetzin to talk about how the construction industry is utilizing Smart Construction Dashboard, I think we need to kind of appreciate where we've been. And I say that because a lot of times we have the technology and that's what we know, and we don't quite understand how it really impacts our business and how it makes it benefits us. I think we have the technology that has been developed, and we see it in our day-to-day environment, and we're utilizing it, and we don't necessarily appreciate what we had to do in order to, before we even had this technology. So I wanted to kind of go over a little bit about historically where the construction industry, and Dave really touched on this too. He talked about the paper maps. He talked about the slow adoption rate, the comfort in the tools that they use. So I just, what I want to do is kind of speak briefly about how a contractor would traditionally go about starting a project. Now, traditionally in the United States, and it may vary between other countries, but most contractors are given a set of paper plans, and from those paper plans, they then have to do all of their takeoff. So they're trying to estimate everything from essentially that two-dimensional space, a piece of paper. They're marking up lineal footage of curb, number of manholes. They're trying to manually calculate volume differences between existing conditions and proposed conditions. So it was a very time-consuming process, and there's a lot of fluff in there, especially when you're manually trying to do this from paper plans. As a lot of contractors maybe out in the audience may know, sometimes those existing conditions that you're given aren't always what is on the job site today. So that existing topo may have been generated from some sort of collection process 2 or 3 years prior to when the developer is actually ready to start developing the project. And there may have been changes. There may be something different. The site may have been raised. The site may have been lowered. There may be excess material on that job site that we may not be able to balance based on some of the limiting conditions. And so if a contractor wanted to verify exactly what the existing conditions were, they'd have to go out and try and measure what's out there. Well, prior to the development of GNSS technology or optical total stations like robotic total stations that would give you instantaneous 3D positions, a lot of this was manual work. Sometimes it could take many people, 2 or 3 people to do. It could take several days to complete. Essentially what they would do is go out and lay out 25 to 50 foot grids, drawing that on the plan, those grids, and then using either an optical level or a rotating laser level, determining an elevation, manually plotting these on the plans, and then creating contours from those elevations, and then trying to verify where that is. This had a lot of error to it. There was a lot there. It was prone to a lot of fluff, and it really took a lot of time for the contractor to complete. And in fact, there's a lot of construction companies today that are still implementing this process using a number of different people and several days just to verify that existing conditions. What do they do during the regular course of the construction? During the regular course of construction, they're doing the exact same thing. They're still implementing the same processes through the course of construction in order to determine how accurate they are, how much they've actually moved, and where they've gone. Well, this takes, again, it takes it takes labor, it takes people, and as we know in the industry, good qualified people, that technical experience, the experience to understand how the job site's progressing, it's very hard to come by these days. We're really starting to have to rely on technology more to start to fill in that experience gap. With the innovation of GNSS positioning, robotic total stations, now we're able to get 3D positions, but those are all point plots with very limited metadata that's associated to them. Oftentimes just a point number and a description. And then you'd go back into the office, create essentially a 2D plan in a 2D workspace, and then generate a surface based on that information. If you weren't out at the job site, you wouldn't have a clear visual of what is out there, except for what is being created from this point plot. We have to really think about, in the construction industry, there is a lot of time that's involved in collecting positions or determining positions out on the job site. So we don't do it on a regular or consistent basis. During construction, a lot of things happen, a lot of things change. We've got equipment that is constantly moving material. How do we analyze the productivity of those pieces of equipment? How do we analyze how much work has been done on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? We have to be able to have some form of technology or some sort of methodology to collect data quickly and easily so that we can make better decisions and understand when a contractor is looking for payment, they're looking to bill out a certain portion of the job. Maybe they're 20% complete, 30%, 40%. Their client, their customer is asking for proof. They want to know definitively that they've got 50% of that job completed. It's very difficult to do that when a lot of that data is in a finite point position environment or in a 2D plan set. They always say, the visuals always give the best indication. Well, with this latest technology, with drone technology and UAS technology of collecting billions of data points, stereo imagery that's now tiled together to create these 3D images of the surface and creating these digital terrains, very accurately, as Dave was saying. I mean, in some cases, he can even get 1 millimeter resolution on some of these digital images. This is giving the contractor the ability to not just now have much more data, but also give him the ability to see what's out there. I'm going to give you a real world experience that happened to me many moons ago. Designed a commercial subdivision. I needed to get a state permit to have an access to a state route. Topo, everything looked good. Got my permit. When we started construction, there was a utility pole right in the middle of that access. It was a big mistake, big hassle, cost a lot of money to do. But if I would have had those imageries, if I would have had those 3D images, I could have seen that and then adjusted accordingly. So having that visual, having the ability to now to see information, capture and collect data in a rapid format in much less time with much less personnel, and having a cloud-based solution. That's another thing that I think, Dave kind of touched on as well. These cloud-based solutions give the contractor the ability to utilize much more data, much more information without having to have a high level of expertise in order to truly understand the geospatial positioning that goes along with it. It's helping the contractor's life be much easier because now they're able to make decisions much quicker. So the one thing, it's the transformation, the digital transformation. So when we look at how the job site is changing from the traditional job site to now the new job site, the way that we used to do it, the comfort that we had in the old ways, the way that we just knew how to collect positions, we just knew how to manage the job site. Well, with the restrictions that have come about this current age, with the conditions, with the timing, with the requirements that a lot of our contractor customers are being asked by their customers, we're now able to provide much more information. We're able to track our progress much more accurately and much more frequent than we have in the past. And we're able to make the connection. That is the one thing that is really, I wanted to touch on too. There's always been this disconnect between the field and the office. Now we're getting this data connection between those two, and we're able to transmit data and receive data from our machines into this dashboard environment, or into this environment that gives us an idea of really what is happening every day on that job site. So I'm going to turn it over to Yoetzin and let her talk about how the contractor is actually implementing these tools.
Thank you, Mike. So yeah, as Mike mentioned, hopefully with smart construction, we're trying to digitize the job site and just give the customer a little bit more ease of information. So to get us there, we've established a partnership with Cesium to build a platform where our customers can interact with their drone data. So here's a glimpse of that. We're going to show you a little video of that. So as you can see, within partnership with Cesium, we try to establish a platform, right? Like Mike talked about how the old processes, and we're trying to digitize the job site, right? So how is this all coming together, right? The way today our customers are doing it is they're collecting their drone data, right? So they're using the DJI Phantom 4 RTK, and then they're using a third-party platform to process the data. So how does that interface with Smart Construction Dashboard that Cesium has helped us create it? It's very simple. So once the customers process their drone data, then they can upload it into Dashboard, right? So what is Dashboard? It's a software. It's a 3D data viewer. The customer doesn't need a special computer or anything like that to be able to upload or download any files. So it really allows the customer to upload all of our design files, right? I like to call it a visual depository, right? Where they can upload all of their line work, all of their design surface, right? If they wanted to compare the actual job site condition versus their design file, they can simply do that with Smart Construction Dashboard and the drone data. And then next, we have our unique feature of a Smart Construction Dashboard, which is the machine as-built, right? We're calling it machine as-built, but it is actually capturing the activity of the machine and using that to create a cut fill map in comparison with your drone data. So the customer can simply capture the job site condition, then compare it with the machine as-built data. So does the job site condition actually match the machine activity? So we'll get a little bit more into detail in a little bit, but basically all of these components, the line work, the design surface, the machine as-built data, they're all tied into this cloud, which is our Smart Construction Dashboard. It's the neat thing, it's very easy to interact, it's very collaborative, and once the customer has the drone data, they can just simply bring it in and start interacting with it. So I want to share some of the most typical cases for Smart Construction Dashboard to give you a little bit of a better idea how it actually works on the field. So I talked about automatic as-built data collection of the machine, right? So how are we actually doing that? So we're establishing a connection between the machine and the software. Once we do that, we start collecting daily activity of the machine. So with this condition, if multiple machines are working in the same area, then the most recent data is saved at the end of the day. So we use the term as-built, right? But basically what we're saying is, the final condition that the machine has left the soil at that point in time, that's what we're actually capturing. So what you're seeing here on this video, it's the collection of here we go. There we go. So what you're seeing here in this video is a customer can collect the drone data, and then they can go in there and create a measurement. So they will select their latest drone flight, and then they will select their latest machine activity. So you can see here where the dozer spend the most amount of time working on the job site. So real time, nice visual to easily capture what has been done versus the actual job site condition. Next here, cut fill map. So usually in earth moving, our contractors are doing cut fill map. So cut is the amount of material being moved from the job site, and fill is how much material they have to import or add to the job site, right? So ideally, we want the cut and fill to be net zero, but that doesn't always happen, right? So if the customer captures their drone data, they can upload it into Dashboard and then compare it with their design file, right? So this really gives them an easy way to calculate the latest volume on the job site. So really comparing today versus design, just giving them a better idea of where they're at versus where they're going. And, does it make sense what they originally bid? This is another great way to kind of check if they're in line with what was originally bid. Next here, we hear a lot of time our customers say, does my site balance, right? What is left to be done on the job site? Again, having that drone data is very powerful to upload it into dashboard. And if they want to compare the original topo, was the original topo correct? They can also do that by uploading the original topo design file and then comparing it with the drone data. So as you can see here in this visual, a comparison between the drone data and versus the original topo, there's about 100,000 difference between the engineered topo and the actual, right? Next here, neat thing about dashboard customers can use to get stockpile volumes, right? So stockpile, sometimes it's material that it has to be moved on a different area of the job site or actually outside of the job site. So in some challenging conditions, if our customer, it's not very ideal for them to do hand survey, if they have the drone data, they can upload it into dashboard and just simply create a boundary around that and get the smart volume, right? So this would be ideal if there's like a lot of break lines in between the stockpiles. So it's just very easy for them to compare and figure out the volume in a scenario like this. Okay, last but not least, our line measurement. It's also a very powerful feature that our customers are finding very helpful in Smart Construction Dashboard. So what you're seeing here is a real case scenario from our Komatsu mining headquarters project, which I'll let Andy talk a little bit more about that. But our line measurement really allows the customer to investigate specific areas of the terrain, right? So what you're seeing here, they were doing excavation. The contractor was doing excavation of the pile caps. And they were really trying to find a good visual way for them to show the GC, hey, this is how much extra work we've done. This is how much undercuts we've encountered on the site. So they did a 2D cross section for a specific area that they wanted to investigate. And then after that, they're going to select different data sets that they want to compare it with. So this is just a great way to gain credibility, right? As a contractor, to say, this is how much extra work we've done. Hey, pay up, right? So here they'll select, they're selecting their activity, their Asphalt data versus their design file. So where does the work that we've done fall in relation to our design file? Right, so they're looking at June 5th versus June 15th, and they're also selecting the design file. I'm going to let this play a little bit. So what you're seeing here, so the purple is June 15, and then the white is June 5th. So we're seeing that on June 15, they had a significant amount of undercuts for this specific area. So this was just a good way for them to prove the extra work that they've done on the job site, and to have just a better relationship and conversation with the GC to say, hey, pay up, this is how much extra work we've done. So these are some of the most typical cases of dashboard on how contractors are really using it on the job site, how it's really helping them better track their activity and even their budget, right, of how much material they've lost, how much material they need to bring back into the job site. So I'm going to pass it on to Andy to really show us how, as a general contractor, they're actually using it on a daily basis and how he's finding that Smart Construction Dashboard very helpful.